Howdy, guys. Man, that Luigi, huh? That egotistical maniac son of a bitch! I mean, what does that guy think he's so cool for anyways? He thinks he can just put on a green hat and overalls and suddenly he's the big cheese? I mean, just look at this narcissistic bastard. Luigi Brothers, Luigi's Mansion, and who could possibly forget Luigi is missing? Best goddamn day of my life. So to protest this disgusting individual, I've come up with an ingenious plan. Actually talk about a Mario game.
Yeah, that's a little odd, isn't it? I've been doing the video game talkie talk gimmick for nearly 6 years and I haven't talked about Mario yet. Honestly, that's because I'm worried that I wouldn't do him justice, but then I realized...
Not exactly the newest concept.
I've loved Mario games for as long as I can remember. It's so ingrained into my soul that my favorite color is red just because Mario is also red. There have been quite a few times in the past when I've been disappointed by Mr. Mario's escapades, especially with Nintendo's more recent unscrupulous business practices, so I figured I'd throw my hat into the Nintendo hate ring. One fairly recent story of mine came from Mario's 35th anniversary. One of the greatest moments of my life turned dark with slightly obtuse marketing choices.
Oh, the humanity!
Of course, being Nintendo's cash cow, Mario's had quite a few anniversaries over the years. It wasn't until the year of my birth for the 20th anniversary that they decided to make them more official events with the Happy Mario 20th celebration. From now on, there would be a new event every 5 years. For the 25th anniversary in 2010, they made this really cool Mario-themed red DSi XL that is just the cornerstone of my Mario shrine. My favorite, though, had to be the 30th anniversary in 2015. It had great artwork. They made these incredibly detailed 8-bit Mario amiibos that are just so cool to a Mario fan like me. The main highlight, though, without a doubt, was the release of Super Mario Maker, one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. So I was pretty sure that nothing would ever be as good as that ever again. However, I was proven wrong very quickly one fateful day. It was September 3rd, 2020. Not exactly a fruitful year for Nintendo-related events, or any events for that matter. Let's see, it was September 2020, so I was probably playing... Oh right, Sense's Rainforest on my Mario 25th Anniversary DSi XL. So while cranking out a match of Stack Jacks, I saw a Nintendo Direct all about the Super Mario Bros. 35th Anniversary, and I was floored. Cool collectibles, gadgets, new games, and cross-promotions through merchandise and DLC for other games. It was an all-out extravaganza that I was all in for. One of the earlier things they'd done, which had already been released at that point, was the official Mario Lego sets. I remember back in the heyday of the Wii, there were these really cool Mario Kart Wii Connect sets, and I absolutely adored the Mario figure they would include, so having a neat Bluetooth gimmick-filled Lego set would have been my childhood dream back then.
Unfortunately, as time goes by, I've kind of grown out of those things, but that doesn't mean I'm still not a slut for basic corporate pandering.
As with any of the Mario anniversaries, Nintendo would release a few new games to go along with the celebration. Some were just regular Mario games that aren't associated all that much with the anniversary, but the special few that were made for the celebration are sure to be a treat. A couple years ago, I played through the Year of Luigi games, with all of them basically being unrelated games related to Luigi, or already existing games with Luigi's face slapped onto it, and that certainly isn't any different here with our first game, Super Mario Brothers. No, you dense whore, I'm not talking about the original NES game, I'm talking about the original NES game. On a handheld. Again. Okay, in all seriousness, this was the coolest little gadget they released during the celebration. The Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch was kind of a kill two birds with one stone scenario, considering it was also the 40th anniversary of the Game & Watch. It's a fully featured Game & Watch system that came with the original game, the Lost Levels, and this neat remake of Ball with Mario's face slapped onto it. Even judging from the box, it's obvious that this thing's crammed to the brim with charm, something that I was really missing, so it's just great to see. It feels just like an original Game & Watch too, even down to the squishy buttons and original NES-style D-pad. It doesn't feel the nicest to control or anything, but who f***ing cares? The appeal here is clearly the nostalgia, but there's something for everyone. There's a clock, just like any Game & Watch, with some sweet backgrounds, that Ball game I mentioned, and something that caught me completely off guard. As a mid-2000s boy, I'm pretty nostalgic for the DS and Wii era, so imagine my shock when I discovered that hidden in the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch was the Mario Drawing Song, which was this old song that Nintendo distributed on Flipnote Hatena way back in the day. It's quite a rarity to see, but whenever DS CSI references show up, that just warms my heart. Really, the only complaint I have is that it's like $50, but that's modern Nintendo for you, and you gotta take the positives when you can. Moving on, we have Super Mario Bros. 35. Remember Tetris 99, the free NSO Tetris Battle Royale game that I've been playing for 4 years and I still can't get Tetris Maximus? Well, scoop out the center of the screen, replace it with Mario, divide the player count 2.8 times, and replace the color scheme with a piss-themed color palette, and bam! You got yourself a limited time online-only multiplayer extravaganza. Luckily for me, I can use my magic time travel powers to experience the game once again. It's just, you know, a series of levels from the original Super Mario Bros. That loop endlessly, and beating enemies send them to your enemy screens and vice versa. Considering it's a platformer instead of a puzzle game, it offers a lot more variety in what you get, but it's still just, you know, the original Super Mario Bros. I never really got into it that much, but it's still a neat little game. Like I said, it was a limited time offer, with service for the game being shut down after the anniversary. I hate it when they do this to online services. It's just unfair to the people that really wanted to play this kind of game. I understand that a lot of people never got to play it, but I'm not exactly that sad that it's not around anymore.
Now, what kind of tacky marketing fest would this be without some really dumb shit? A lot of people thought it was pretty cool, but I guess I was just too smart to see through their lies of grandeur. Of course, I'm referring to Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. It's a neat idea, basically being a glorified RC car with a camera. However, I never really got into it and spent like 5 minutes f***ing with my dog and never touched it again. But that's not all, just most. Like any celebration, they had merchandise up the ass. They had the usual stuff, Lego, Monopoly, blah blah blah, but what really stood out to me was their My Nintendo offerings. They finally reintroduced physical rewards, and they hadn't had any of those since Club Nintendo shut down in 2015. They introduced a lot of cool stuff, like this Mario game card holder that's shaped very inconveniently, these posters I've had on my back wall for years, and most importantly, these really cool enamel pins that they were giving out for free. They sold out almost immediately, and I was never able to get any because of fucking course I wasn't. I can't win ever! Okay, away from the anniversary-centric games and onto games that weren't necessarily made for the anniversary, but were announced and released during the anniversary. Still not anniversary games. Just saying.
Now, as the not Paper Mario fan kind of person that I am, I wasn't expecting much out of Paper Mario the Origami King, and I gotta admit, as someone who's only played what every Paper Mario fan considers the sins against Christ, I'm not shocked that I didn't really get anything out of it. Sure, the visuals are just as cool as any of the other games, but newsflash, I'm not really a turn-based RPG kinda guy. While I find them to be very charming games, I just never got invested in any of them. But a re-release of an already existing Wii U game? Fuck yeah! Super Mario 3D World's one of my favorite Mario games. It expanded on 3D Land in all the right ways, and has certainly earned a spot in my heart. It's definitely no Mario Galaxy, but still a really great game. So when it was announced that it would be joining the rest of the Wii U library in the form of a remaster on the Switch, I was pretty stoked. One of my favorite additions was online co-op multiplayer, the first mainline Mario game to offer it, which was already insane. New cat-themed amiibos, the snapshot mode for Mario Odyssey, but by far the biggest addition was an entirely new story mode taking place in an open 3D hub world. Bowser's Fury centers around Bowser being so mad that he turns himself and everything around him into oil, the most evil of all fluids.
You see, it's a metaphor for capitalism and neo-fascism.
The mode takes place on this lake with several small islands scattered around it. It's quite literally just Mario Odyssey, with you collecting cat shrines all over the place through small challenges and missions. It's neat to see all the mechanics from 3D World integrated all around this world. The propeller boxes are back, alongside literally every enemy now having cat ears, and Plessie plays a much bigger role now, transporting you between the islands. Periodically, Fury Bowser comes around to shit up, and it's pretty chaotic with the rock music and dark atmosphere and rain. But if you collect enough cat shrines, one of the several Giga Cat bells are awoken, which transforms Mario into Giga Cat Mario. You finally just get to beat the crap out of Bowser in this epic kaiju-style battle. There's not too much to it. The more interesting part is how he shifts up the level dynamics. Like, it's all calm and serene at first, then the rain happens. Fury Bowser is constantly attacking with his Fire Blast, destroying special blocks that can reveal hidden shines and pathways. The end has as you chase him down on Plessy and most likely kill him. It's pretty short. You can knock it all out in maybe 4 hours or so, but I'm honestly okay with that. It's a really cool side mode that integrates all the existing mechanics of 3D World in a new way. I'm really glad that Nintendo adds something new to these ports, and this is certainly no exception. Now let's take one last detour before we end things here and talk about the various things Nintendo did outside of Mario himself. First and foremost, the Nintendo eShop got a red Mario-themed makeover with the loading screens all being Mario himself. It reminds me a lot of the Wii Shop Channel's downloading screen, and like I said earlier, Wii and DS references always get me hyped. It's not much, but literally anything new with this bland-ass menu is astonishing by itself. Next, they had certain Mario-themed events in their other games. Animal Crossing added a whole bunch of Mario costumes and decorations that are really nice. Mario Maker 2 had a Ninja speedrun auto Mario level that was themed around the first level, and they notoriously hate those kinds of levels, so there must have been some kind of blue moon that day. Must have been, since they even brought Splatoon 2's Splatfest back from the dead for a little bit. I participated and we lost, so I feel empty inside.
I've absolutely saved the best for last in the whiny bitch saga. Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
Alright, so just remember that this is from the perspective of a 15-year-old. So at first we see Mario 64. Cool, about time we had Nintendo 64 games on the Switch. Then it cuts to Mario Sunshine. Sure, I was simultaneously trying to hold back the yellow bile making its way up my esophagus, but at least they finally acknowledged that the GameCube exists. And then Mario Galaxy shows up. The magnum opus of all Mario games was now on the Switch. All is good in the world. Peace has been restored to all nations and all sin has been eradicated. It was clear now. A brand new collection of Mario's greatest 3D hits on one Nintendo Switch cartridge / digital download. Just as I was waiting for the biggest reveal of a lifetime, it ended. Frankly, to say I was excited was an understatement. I wouldn't go so far as to say I was creamed, not hysterical or manic, just regular non-schizophrenic excitement. Later, more details would surface, including that it would be a limited release. It was a heavy point of contention that I definitely understand why people would be mad at. The $60 price tag was pretty egregious. For most. You see, I used my ultra hyper god bargain powers to nab a sweet deal. I had a bunch of Best Buy rewards points left over, all of which I used to pre-order the game for only 20 bucks. Yes, Mr. Clearance Aisle, not too impressive now, but it was certainly the highlight of my gaming career. Oh god. Super Mario 3D All-Stars includes 3 games: Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. Each game has various improvements made to them, but are weirdly inconsistent. I'll get more into that later, but I definitely gotta talk about the menu. Not because it's unique or anything, but in what it's lacking. The Switch motif is ever so slightly present here with the fonts, and there's barely anything new. Aside from the games themselves, each of their respective soundtracks are here with pretty basic presentation. I'm not familiar with a ton of other collections, but the ones that I have seen perfectly captured why everyone loved those games so much in the first place and had as much effort put into them as the original games. It's especially odd considering the Mario Game & Watch had excellent presentation inside and out, and I don't even care that much about the NES games. Concept art or literally anything would have been fine, so it's pretty disappointing. But now, let's finally get into each game. First with Mario 64, the graphics have obviously been enhanced. It's all emulated in HD now, so it looks a lot better. None of the textures were updated aside from the HUD and menu sprites, which were just clearly AI upscaled, making them look god-awful and way too smooth. I think it works when they're more simplistic. The more detailed sprites are just unbearable. There was a lot of discourse online, aka for one, the backwards long jump glitch, an exploit commonly used by speedrunners and other fans of the game, was removed. Another thing was that Mario no longer says "so long, gay Bowser," and that is actually pretty warranted. Not enough of our favorite video game characters are homophobic, and frankly, that needs to change.
I don't think that was in the script.
Say it, you cow!
God, even the voiceover's political now.
The reason for these changes was not to instigate a nuclear holocaust, but because this isn't ported from the original game. It's actually ported from the Japanese-only 1997 re-release of Mario 64. This version actually had all the bug fixes and voice changes, and even support for the N64 Rumble Pack. I guess it makes sense, considering it would be easier to port Rumble support and not having to fix the bugs themselves. I don't give 64 shits about that, because at the end of the day, it's Mario 64, and I'm not the biggest fan of Mario 64. Yeah, it's revolutionary and iconic and whatever lame crap you want to apply to it, but it just hasn't aged the best. Moving on, we have Mario Sunshine. Sunshine. I really hate Mario Sunshine, so any fixes would be great. Would have rather had a different Mario GameCube game altogether because this is just so surreal. A GameCube game is finally on the Switch. Yeah, Virtual Console's dead and several mod developers can't feed their families, but a first-party GameCube game is on the Switch. Praise the possibly Asian Lord. This is where the inconsistencies start. They upscaled the sprites again, but also made it widescreen, something that they didn't do for 64. Other than some more upscaled sprites, it's Mario Sunshine. I 100%ed this version purely out of spite, and I've never been more disappointed in myself and the people that let me do this. And now, the highlight of my entire year, Super Mario Galaxy on the Nintendo Switch. Words cannot describe how surreal it is to see one of my favorite games of all time being brought to a handheld console. It's like watching one of those DIY portable Wii videos from like 10 years ago finally becoming a reality. I know technologically speaking it isn't that impressive, but the 5-year-old inside of me just does not care. First off, the controls are surprisingly well implemented. To emulate the Wii's IR controls, the pointer is controlled with the Joy-Con's gyro sensor. Since it doesn't have the precision of an actual sensor, it just feels slightly off with you having to recalibrate it like all the time. However, nothing was preparing me for what would come next. I put my finger on the touchscreen and next thing I know, I have ascended to a higher plane. I know I complain about gimmicky things all the time, but this is just so charming that it defaults right back to being cool. No man was ever meant to have this kind of power. Yeah. Most of the time that I played it, I used the Pro Controller, which makes it awkward to the 10th degree to point, but it's something I got used to. Graphically, the game still holds up really well. It already looked great on the Wii, so it being in a higher resolution and the HD HUD sprites just absolutely complete it. The game itself is still amazing, just as it always has been, and I was so happy to finally play it. The big sequel-sized elephant in the room definitely needs to be addressed, so I'll have to explain my feelings as calm as I possibly can. I'll come back later. Overall, this collection is kinda mixed to me. Mario Galaxy absolutely carries it, but the lack of extra content or anything outside of just basic sprite upscaling is a pretty big letdown. Couple that with all the glitches at launch and pretty stingy marketing practices, and that kinda spoiled it for me. Still, Mario Galaxy on the Switch, even though the sequel's not. Kill me now.
Mario 3D All-Stars was the absolute peak for me. The rest was basically just a blur, with the exception maybe being Bowser's Fury. I think the only thing larger than my love for shoddy port collections is fatigue. Simply put, I don't like Super Mario Brothers.
Now, there's no doubt that it was an absolutely revolutionary game that basically started modern gaming as we know it, but it's not the only game. There's only so many times they can force-feed the same NES sprites down our throats without it being a little tiring. This should be a celebration of all the Mario games, not just the main ones. Use that time to highlight a lot of the more obscure series, like the sports games or the RPG series. There's so much ground they could work off from that, and it could add a whole lot of variety. Knowing Nintendo, they definitely won't, but isn't half of the fun wishing? The anniversary would officially end on March 31st, 2021, as Mario was publicly beheaded for all the children to see. It was a fun celebration for me, especially in a lackluster year, but I'm hopeful that their future anniversaries can be even better.
It was nice while it lasted, and I think people are blowing the issues it had way out of proportion. I mean, look at what they did 10 years prior. They put a Super Nintendo ROM on a Wii disc and we all just sucked it up. Yeah, so there's really no point complaining about things. Now let's figure things out over a nice game of Super Smash Bros. Melee HD, currently available to all Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack plus Triple Plus members.